Man. Welcome. Welcome. I will try to talk loud because if I don't talk a little out, then the this I guess it's called speakers or something maybe, but the volume, if it's too low here, if I'm speaking too low, it won't get me. It won't get me like it should. You'll hear me in and out if I'm speaking too low. So I'll try to talk loud enough, which is what I've learned to do, is to talk louder and loud enough and loud enough so you can hear me. But yeah, and that's why my voice can get a little deeper the louder that I get. But yeah, so let's begin. So welcome back to the Freedom from the Night. Today we're going on to another informational piece in the life of the Bible verses, and you can always catch this information in my mini playlist going over each part in the Bible. So even if I move on to another book, chapter and verse, it will be put under a playlist where you will find what you need. But I am diving into these powerful messages these verses bring into our everyday life. So, and also I'm having Wi-Fi issues over here. So welcome, mixed class. Welcome, mixed class. Welcome. Welcome. Let me see if I can improve the Wi-Fi before a certain amount of time passes by. Hold on, let's see. So I'm gonna take a little break to get this Wi-Fi. Maybe this Wi-Fi can act a little better, closer. So hold on. All right, I'm back. This hopefully that doesn't create a problem. I'm seeing a little after effect static. Anyway, so we will be going off into this is video number 6. Video number 6, and it will be put under the playlist Creation of Heaven and Earth. It will be put under the playlist Creation of Heaven and Earth, and this will be video number 6, and you are here on the channel, The Freedom from the Night. I need to edit that, don't I? Okay. Let's switch that up. All right. So it's supposed to say The Freedom from the Night, okay? So yes, you are here with the freedom from tonight. I am live tonight before in the morning. So most of you may be asleep, some of you may be woke, but we getting off into the powerful messages that these verses bring into our everyday life. Okay. So first and foremost, I want to say how we went over this is where we are. We are at creation of heaven and earth. This is where we are. We are in the creation of heaven and earth, which are the things that was made before we was made. Okay? So these are things that was already created before, that was already in effect before we even was created to come along after all these things that was made. So this is that creation. This is all about the what we are and who we are and how certain things became, right? So the creation of heaven and earth was the part in which we need to know about. That's the part that came here before us. That came. Creation of heaven and earth came. It was there. And when we came, we was one with all these things, okay? So this is me letting you know how we are one. Hold on, let me see if this is wasting a little time here. With this hello. Okay, so looks like it's working, even though it's showing that it is not. That, okay, so let's get off into it. Okay, so basically, this is how we are getting off into this. Okay, that you are tuned into Bible study. This is Bible study with your host Shontey. Welcome here. Welcome. Okay. welcome. Let's see here. Oh, we already did that. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, I'm sorry. So again, this was things that was created way before we came on the face of the earth. Okay, but the first thing first is how God created heaven and earth. He did that first before we even was created. Okay, He created heaven and earth, and a lot of people don't know where this location of heaven and earth is, but heaven and earth is in one place, one area, and we all are connected to heaven and earth. Okay, we have a connection. All of His hosts, we are one, and that's where we don't understand is that We are one. When he made this one. Okay. He made this as one to connect, to allow us to be able to freely give, right? To freely give what he has freely given to us. He made this that way. This was supposed to be done freely. All these things that he did before us, and these things that he did when it came to us, this was freely given. Okay. So as you know, we went over verse 1, but now we are in verse 1:2. Okay. But in verse 1:1, we went over in the beginning, right? That was the first portion of it. God created the heaven and the earth, or we can just separate that and say the heaven and then say the earth, okay? But I wrote it out on this page. Let me add this screen real quick. So I wrote it out on what I actually mean by what God did before we even came here on this earth, okay? Before we even was created. He created heaven and earth, okay? And this was the system of what he created, okay? This was that system. This was a system that was already in effect. And we actually came into that system as we were created, okay? So this was letting us know that God created a system too, but it's called a doctrine. Ultimately, it's called a doctrine in which we are supposed to believe in and that we are supposed to do, okay? We supposed to live by, all right? So the first thing first is that this is getting off into creation of heaven and earth. Now on the verse 1, so verse 1, we did verse 1, that's what this is, verse 1, chapter 1, we did in the beginning, God created the heaven and then and the earth. So notice that I put that like that because number one, I was putting that on the board that was off of this thing, and a lot of people were saying they could not see it. It was backwards. So sometimes I can be able to get access to this board, but then sometimes I do have to write on the board, and sometimes I won't even have a board at all. So you'll just have to hear me and what I'm saying, depend on the location that I'm at. But so far we got this board right here. Now, to understand what the verse 1 is saying, you got to take this and you have to know like what it's saying. So like we normally do, normally I tell you to go from the top to the bottom. That's what we just did. And then go from the bottom up to the top to get the answers in which you need. Okay. This is class. So you need this. And then within that verse, there will be also other answers that you need that will be right there for you. Okay. You will learn how to use this Bible to find definitions for you. You will learn how to use this Bible to look up words for you, because you're going to find different things in different verses to elaborate on what you actually trying to say. You know what I'm saying? You'll go into different verses, you'll pull those verses out, and those verses will go with what you're trying to say. And the Lord will give you that. The Lord will give you the verse to go to. Don't just go to any verse or a verse. I'm not saying that. But the Lord will point out a verse to you. Hold on a second. Let me move around here. But the Lord will point out a verse to you in which you need. Okay. So as you can see right here on the board next to me, it says, in the beginning. That's if you're reading it from the top to the bottom and you sort them out in a way that you putting in the, and then you putting God created, you putting something with what it is. Okay. It's got to be with something that goes into that word. Okay. And, so it's like predicate and subject, should I say. It's like predicate and subject, I guess you could say it like that, but it's direct and pointed to the exact words versus a long stretched out sentence. And a lot of times when the Lord tell you to be, I'm going to say this as well, because you need this as taking notes. Note this, that a lot of times the Lord will have you to do a prayer, or he will have you to do like what they call a warfare prayer, okay? Or you will have a testimony that you would have to interpret, or just to interpret in general means that you will have to be specific. So this is why I'm doing this like this. It's not that I'm doing this for fun. I'm not doing this for fun. I'm not doing this just for play on words or anything like that. What I'm doing is for your prayer life, what you're going to need for prayer, what you're going to need for when you have a testimony, or, the other things that God is going to have you to do. Okay? God is going to have you to do a lot of things, and he's going to want you, as you are doing those things like prayer, for example. I'm going to use prayer. When God is having you to do a prayer, he wants you to be specific. Okay? So in being specific, you have to set it up in the way that I have this right here. You got to be specific. Predicate and subject, it cannot be a long stretch out sentence. Do you understand what I'm saying? The school taught us that they want a sentence, meaning that's to do with how they come up with these stories. And some people are very good at stories, okay? But like I told you, when you come into Christ, you got a letter. You're going to have a letter wrote out to these people, and it's going to have the specific words as you interpret the thing in which God is going to give you to interpret. Whether that be a dream, an audible voice, or a dream or audible voice, and so on and so forth. Ooh, my body. I'm sleepy too. Forgive me. I'm doing this sleepy. Okay. But as the Lord give this to you in a dream or in a vision, or the audible voice, okay? You have to be willing, and you have to be, as God give you utterance, you have to interpret this thing in the way it is given to you, okay? And some of us are still learning how to interpret the things that is given to us on a day-to-day basis, all the time, all day long. So mainly what I'm saying to you is that interpretation is the same thing as the opposite of telling a story. You will be interpreting a letter that is wrote. In the letter, through prayer being the example that I just used, the letter will always be used every time we talk. It will not be a story. And that's why people will not understand what you are saying as the child of God. Okay, because you in a new creation. You are coming, should I say, you are becoming back planted and seated in the gift. Okay, you're coming back from what the world has scattered you all around about and you are coming back to the center in which was the beginning, because you went in and you living out the end. Okay, the end time is all the stuff that happened after he created all the beginning things. Okay, he created all this beginning stuff, and all we remember is the ending stuff of when the people were born, but we do not remember the beginning, because everything has a beginning, and that's what we have to understand. Okay, he did do all the beginnings, and the beginnings are the stuff in which I'm naming now, the creation of heaven and earth. And then it was another thing before we were born, and another thing before we came. There was a beginning in all this stuff in which we trying to manipulate out on the face of the earth. We are messing around with. We messing with it. We trying to manipulate it. We are trying to do things we are not supposed to be doing. Planting seed that's not supposed to be planted on the earth. And we messing with everything that was already done before we got here. The beginnings. Okay? Thinking that we running something, thinking that we got it all together, and we don't. We don't. So that's why all the beginning stuff is messing with all the end stuff, because we have forgotten that there was a beginning before the end stuff. And the first portion of the beginning is how God created the heaven and the earth. He created that first. So in the verse, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And again, when you begin to pray, this is how specific you will have to be. Cut it short to this point, because you're going to have to be very specific when you pray or when you have your testimony. We're not doing this for no stories. That's why, again, let me take it back to how a lot of people are not going to understand your story, understand your interpretation. Okay? Not because it's not a story, it's specific and direct more so. So they're not going to understand your testimony that you are given by God and given to them. They're not going to understand your testimony when you give it to them, because that's what it is. It's called a testimony. And that's why you hear a lot of people say that, oh, not everybody going to receive your testimony, because that's what the opposite of a story is. A story is the long drawn out thing that you learn in the world, and that we learn from English, that it has to have that certain type of thing to tell a story, but not when it comes to not when it comes to interpretation. when it comes to interpretation, you're going to have a letter that has already been wrote, and you're going to basically rehearse this letter for good improvising, okay, and good structure, and you're going to give that to nations. And again, a lot of people will not receive you, but some will. Only the ones that has the understanding and will receive of the wisdom that you are giving, not from yourself, but from God. And a lot of you think that a lot of stuff is coming from God, but it is not. Okay? It is not. It's coming from the source. It could be coming from the source of your head, your mind, which is the devil. Okay? And out from your mouth are coming demons. Okay? But when it comes to prayer, you are interpreting. You're not telling the story. You are interpreting, meaning that it didn't come from you. It came from someone else. So you are interpreting the thing from Christ. And Christ is the system in which we are housed in. We are housed in Christ's body. That spirit is with us. Okay? That is the house, the body on the body. Body on body, okay? That's the body on body you need, not the body in the earth, because that promotes, again, orgies, okay, upon your body, and eventually can take you off the face of this earth because they piled up on your heart, body on body, to the point where you are in the grave, okay, deep in it. Like what we get off into about the deep hole. But for prayer, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And again, you can find your answers of what this is trying to tell you by going from top to bottom and from bottom to top. Okay? You will find your meaning and your definitions in the Bible. And it says that, so I'm going to read this again. And these will be good for direct prayer points for you to know how to utilize and use. Okay. So, and this is before man was created and all those different things, but you still can interpret it in what it's trying to convey to you by going from bottom to top to bottom, and utilizing everything within that verse to kind of see what it's trying to relate to you, convey to you, should I say. So let me give you an example of that. It says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. So then as I go from the bottom, it says, and the earth and the heaven, God created. And he did this when? In the beginning. Okay? So that kind of gets you in a mode of the definition of verse 1 and what that means for you. Okay? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And then if you go from the bottom, it says, and the earth and also the heaven, God created in the beginning. And it emphasizes in the beginning. If we go from bottom to top, it ended at in the beginning. And that's an emphasis on that in the beginning. In the beginning is the portion of what this is. And also we can say the beginning, and then we can go down and attach that to the earth. You know, beginning in earth. And then if you go from the bottom to the top, it says the earth beginning. You know, the earth beginning. Like this is, the earth is beginning. It's starting to be established. It's starting to be foundational, if I could say, it's starting to be in rotation. It's starting the system in the beginning mode. So the beginning mode is it's a certain type of thing. Like that's what that's telling you. Like the beginning is a certain type of thing, and a lot of people are missing it to go over into the other portion in which God created, and that's getting straight to the people, the man that he put on the earth, and then how he started birthing the woman. And so they arguing about the woman that was birthed after the man and saying, blaming stuff on the woman who was birthed of a man. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a system and how this came. So therefore, it's no blame on anyone, because ultimately the man is what the woman came from. So we get back into the blaming of this whole system that had a beginning. And then the man, before the man came, God created a bunch of stuff before he even came on the face of this earth. We forgetting a lot of the beginning. And the definition is in that verse in which I gave to you already. Okay? Because we're getting off into chapter 1, verse 2. But I want to tell you this portion because this is something that we forgot. Okay? So when you get to blaming men, get to blaming women, we got to take it back. We can't take it back to when people were on, people established things and all this. No, we got to take it back, all the way back from when God created the heaven and earth, all the way to when woman came. You got to do this, because this will tell you that, man, you can't blame woman. And woman, you can't blame man. Y'all can't blame each other. Because number one, if woman, you call yourself blaming man, then it's going to take it all the way back before man. And how the creation of it was that it was messed up. Okay? But the beginning system part of it, and what I'm reading now, the creation of heaven and earth, that was the beginning. And then some other stuff came in the beginning. He had a whole row, a whole section, a whole level of things that happened before even you was created. And we gonna get off into all of that, okay? All of the system in which God did in the beginning before we came, and how we are messing it up by doing the things that we are doing, because we are all one with these things. We are one with these things, and we messing it up, trying to manipulate everything and trying to manipulate everybody. We are not manipulating the beginnings, though. The beginning stuff that happened. We can't manipulate that. We can't manipulate the beginnings. We can't. You know? And all that stuff going to have an effect on what? The heaven and the earth. Because there wasn't a beginning. Okay? It's going to have an effect on all those things, because we are all united. We are all one. So no matter if you separate a woman from man, a man from woman, and y'all argue about each other and all those things, it still doesn't separate the beginning and how it all was established, how it all was started, and how the doctrine began. It still doesn't stop that. That's still going to be. And we all going to have to eventually come together, which it should be now, because we are all one with the creation in which God has created. Everything is right here before us. Everything is here. Heaven is here. Earth is here. All this stuff was created here. And all of it is here. You need to believe that, understand that, walk in it, and give. And stop giving this ending effects every time. That's the end. When man and woman and all those different things was created. Again, that's the end. But the beginning is all this stuff that happened in which we are going off into the creation of heaven and earth. Then we're going off into some stuff about the light and all those different things. We'll be going off into a lot of stuff that was in the beginning. Okay, class? Salute to you, soldiers. Salute to you. Welcome here to class. All right, so as I continue to use this portion of it, this is what was taking place. And also, again, you will use these for prayer points as well, because this is the letter in which we was given. You will use these letters and you will be direct and specify. When God tell you be specific, this is what he's meaning. Don't give him no long drawn out. I don't mean like it's not going to be long. That's not what I'm meaning. But you're going to be specific long. See, like a lot of people may not know what I mean. Like in one portion of the Bible, it says that they did these long prayers, right? Like the Pharisees did these long prayers. Well, long prayers meaning like they was saying stuff like it was a long drawn out story, right? It was just a long drawn out story to will you in to what they saying. And so after a while, it became manipulating, and it still drawed you in more and more, right? But in another part, it also talked about how it also goes into when you read Psalms, some Psalms are long, right? Some Psalms are short. So at some point, you got to begin to interpret that correctly. And that is that you got to be like, oh, he don't mean long as in lengthy. He mean long as in just a bunch of words being put out there and being spoken and said. That's what he means. At some point you gotta know the interpreting that it don't mean what you think it means, as in, a long prayer, because you're gonna have a long prayer, people. Soldiers, you're gonna have a long prayer sometimes, and sometimes you're gonna have a short prayer. But your prayers that are long, they're gonna be specific, and they're gonna hit boom, 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 boom. They're gonna be in the light, in which we're gonna go off into that other portion of the beginning, so you can know about the light. Okay, so it's going to be boom, 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 boom. Okay, so when you're saying the prayer, but it's going to be long sometimes, and sometimes it's going to be short, so that it could be specific. Okay, and then sometimes angels like when angels give you a prayer to get out of your flesh, it's gonna be long too. It's gonna be long as well, because the angels does give us prayer as well. Okay, the Lord give us prayer specifics, and angels give us prayer specifics. They all work as one, though. They all work as one. All right, because when Jesus comes, the angels also, and also the sword, which I spoke about. That sword will be there when you enter this new life, and understand that this new life is here right now, because this is what the Lord did in the beginning. He created these things. These things are not just gone. They still here and in effect. Although we are here, they're still here too. So don't forget that. Don't forget that. So back to what I was saying. So do know that in this fruitation, this fruitfulness, this multiplication, in which this is what it's talking about. This is meaning multiplication. You all did the multiplication of them babies, but that ain't the multiplication in which the Lord is actually talking about, because babies can die. After a while, it started splatting out names, right? So we'll get into the different names and how everybody was born. That's what happens. After a while, all these people were born and then they died. And then more was born and then they died. And then more was born and then they died. So multiplication ain't even talking about that. To multiply ain't even talking about that. Because God even goes into, after we get off into it, he even gonna go into how certain ones were picked out of all that multiplication of that earthly stuff, which is the ending portion, man, and how he started doing his own thing and forgot about the beginning, and multiplying that. They forgot to multiply the beginning, not to multiply when they came upon the earth and multiplying that. No, that's not the multiplication. That's not the true multiplication of what God is trying to convey and tell the world. No, he don't want you to give that to the world. He wants you to multiply, as in his beginning and all the stuff that he created. Multiply that. The beginning portion, which is this portion is about the heaven and earth. Then it's another portion going about talking about the light. And then it goes on to another portion. And then we come into the play. He's saying to multiply all the beginnings in what he has already put into play out here on the earth. See, if we get this in order and do this in order, we would know what it is that God is really trying to tell us in the Bible. You understand? We will get it if we get it in order, and we would do this and get this being the things that we ought to being from us, which is part of the beginning, then we will be doing the multiplication correctly. Okay? Not multiplying babies, trying to keep hold of them, planting your souls into your children. And then now you got demons planting into the souls of your babies, because you don't know how deep this really is and how deep this goes and how many heavens there are due to all the things that we are doing here. And we need to make it be one heaven and one earth here with us, which we are too, heaven and earth with us. We are that because we have a spirit in the body. Heaven and earth, flesh and spirit. You understand? Okay, but let me get off into this thing here. So again, man, you cannot blame woman, because if you read the Bible and you go to the beginning to the end, you'll know all these different things and get off into the system. And then you came a part of the system. We all are one. And then woman was created by man, from man. And man, woman, you cannot blame man, because man was created from God. So it's almost like nobody can walk around here in the ending portions in which what God created, because everything else is connected to that. If you go back to the beginning portions, you will not be in the ending portions. You get what I'm saying? And the beginning portions are everything God created. And if you utilize that, you'll know that, okay, this stuff will come from me too. This stuff will come from me as well. Not only just out there, put in the air in there. You understand? Hopefully you do. So again, to interpret this stuff, you can go from the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top. Now let me keep it pushing. Now we are, again, this is all about creation of heaven and earth. And we are getting off into where we are. We are now in another portion, which is and darkness was upon the face of the deep. This is the portion still under creation of heaven and earth. We're getting off now into 2, chapter 1, verse 2 of Genesis. And that is, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Okay. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now, that's the portion we're getting off into, but also do not forget the other part that was after this. After, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We got in the earth, okay, it was all the rotation of the creation of heaven, okay, and the earth was without form and void, okay. Now, if I take that and go from the bottom, which is this portion, which is this, form and void, and remember, if you take your notes, void means law, all right? Void means law. That's when law begins. When that void comes, that's law. That's the whole system and the whole doctrine of another thing. That's when that start coming down, void. Okay, so void means law. And you will know that that means law because it's going to be in another part of the Bible, and it's going to tell you what void means. Okay, and it's going to bring you back to Genesis in this verse 2. Okay, and this is how you're going to learn the Bible, because you're going to take some of the stuff that you actually remember from this and what God is going to make you remember from this, and you're going to take it once you read the other portions in the Bible, and you're going to be like, oh, so now that's the definition. So void means law. You're going to know what void means as you are getting more and more in depth into this Bible verse stuff, okay? So again, like I said, if you take it from the top to the bottom and from the bottom to the top, you will know all the things in the Bible that you need to know. And also taking what you learned in the beginning portion of the Bible all the way to the ending portion of the Bible, and you begin to connect these things like so, then you also will find definitions to what you're saying at some point, and not just be saying stuff. Again, when you pray, you got to be specific. So that means also when you say, you got to be specific, okay? And again, you learn how to tell stories, but you're going to learn how to say a letter when it comes to this body of Christ. And you're going to go back to what you begin. And this is a letter form in which I'm telling you right now how in verse 1, part of verse 1, 2, and we still in 1, 2, it says, what it say? And the earth, this is part of the letter, was without form and void. So now we take this portion of the letter and we say form and void was without. Think about that. If we go from the bottom to the top of this letter, we'll have the definition in which I was trying to tell you about yesterday, right? or when I did the last video I did, you will begin to know what I was trying to say to you. I was trying to tell you that form and void was without, right? So that's form and void. Form and void was without. Those are the things that's atmosphere type stuff, out there type stuff. This stuff was without. Okay? Was never supposed to be within, right? But the stuff was without, before us, right? Not before and after, in front. All these things were before us. So that's why I said what I said in the last video in the way that I said it. I was letting you know the things that was a part of the form and void that was without us, meaning atmosphere taking place before us. Okay? Even also the before we were born and before us, as in that word before, like in front of us. Okay? That before can be used two different ways and a lot of different other ways. But what I mean is the before us, in front of us. All right? So form and void is without. And this said was without, meaning it's been here without us for several centuries, way before we was on the face, before he created us. Okay? There was stuff here before that. So that's why I got off into all the specifics in my last video before this video, which this video will be put under a playlist. Now, as you know, form and void was without. So was the earth. So it says, and the earth. So was the earth. That's that void. That's that form. That's all of the withouts. Okay? I'm going to say it like that. Those are all of the withouts. Those things are all of the without. Okay? So that means that we are put into the without as well. Okay? But that also can lead to us being in this form and void, which is why we have to have Jesus to take us through this form and void. Do you understand? Like we need Jesus to take us through this form and void because it's here. We sitting up here arguing, putting out this form and void. We are inhaling this stuff wrongfully, and breathing this stuff out wrongfully. We are supposed to utilize this atmosphere as though it's already been planted in, and we supposed to seed in it as though it's already been seeded. Because multiplication ain't talking about the multiplication of some children. That's just the end. That's the end portion. Multiplication is talking about these beginnings in which I'm talking to you that was here before we already came. Before we was created, there was other things created. And this is what I'm talking to you about. And if we don't understand that portion that was already created before us, then we're going to have a problem with what we do on the face of this earth. You understand? This stuff was here. This is the beginnings. And I'm getting into a lot of it before we came, which is the end of it. And all that stuff started happening. That's that end stuff. And that's why we are in the end times. But we can get back to the beginning by knowing that all this beginning stuff that I'm talking to you about in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, all this beginning stuff took place God created. Remember I told you about created? He created. This stuff is important. This was given to us. And we sitting up here blaming one ending portion, each other. We ain't come until the end. He ain't make us till the end. So what we arguing and battling each other for? No, we got to get them demons that's leasing in houses, meaning making you wander down to other houses that you're not supposed to be in. You're not. You in houses that you don't belong in. You're only supposed to be in one house, and that's in the doctrine of Christ. You understand? Because a house is a doctrine, because you're going to adhere to the belief system within the doctrine, within the house, and you're going to operate that out with your steps. Which your steps are called the gospel. And the Lord said to spread the gospel, right? So that's why we can simply say that as we are one with everything we are one with, we can simply say that the gospel can be evil or good, right? We can simply say that because you can be spreading, you are meant to spread the gospel. But if you start with the ending portion of the gospel, you are spreading the wrong gospel. But if you start with the beginning portion of the gospel, you will take into mind everything that was created. And you would simply humble yourself, and you would simply forgive, and you would simply know, understand, have the wisdom, have the knowledge and revelation that you really truly need. You wouldn't be tiptoeing out here thinking that nobody don't see you. You're seen. You have been put into a system that has already been made. And when I say system, guess what you're going to think? The government? The people? No, that ain't what I'm talking about. You've been put into a system that's already been made, meaning God created this stuff in which I'm talking about already now. He created some stuff. This is the stuff I'm talking about now. The heaven and the earth. This is the creation of heaven and earth. That's what I'm calling this. This is what this is the beginning. He created this first. He created this first, class. He created this first before he even made us. So why are you talking about the government so badly? That's the end portion. And then still, when you keep blaming them and you go back and you be like, no, it ain't about us. It's about the government. You think you said something. You still ain't said nothing. You still ain't gotten to the bottom of it. You think you got to the bottom of it because now you know. Oh, now you know. No, you still don't know. That's still the ending. The government is still the ending because the government consists of people. So people is the ending. You still at the end arguing about the end stuff and forgot the beginning and how God created, and he was in the rotation of creating the whole thing before we came and start producing some kids. So multiplication ain't got nothing to do with producing some kids and how men was made, how they was made with so much sperm that tells you they supposed to have so many women and they supposed to produce so many kids. Nah. God didn't use all them kids. They came and they went. He only used a portion of them. And out of a bunch of them, it was only the ones that was used over accumulation of time was how many? 144,000. Only. Let's think about it. Only the portion out of all the multiplication of what man can make, only the portion in which God created was utilized for bringing all the beginnings out from them. He was utilizing all those beginnings, and God gifted them with that, all that, within that doctrine of Christ, within that house. And they adhered to it, and they walked it, and they did it. And it was only amount up to 144,000. Only amounted up to 144,000. That calculation don't even fit with how much multiplication man, woman with man been created. Nah. Even though that was done, only 144,000. We can say that God was able to actually use for the beginnings all the way to them. Only we can say 144,000. Hopefully you're getting that. Class. Hopefully you're getting that, class. So if you're going to say the portion in which I told you about, it's the without. Okay. So form and void was without, meaning it was already made. It was without. And so was the earth. Okay. All those things as we surrounded in. All right. So now we getting off into, and the darkness was upon the face of the deep. All right. So I'm gonna try to make this as quickly as possible, class. We can't stay in the class too long. Y'all gonna get kind of bored. But regardless of how bored you get, you better take this in because you're gonna need it because of the deep, because of the darkness that we're about to get into. You're gonna need this because of that, okay? Because it gets like that. From when you fall asleep and when God gave you breath and you wake back up and you go out here in atmospheres. Walking, meaning once you walk, you spreading the gospel. So watch out how you spread and what you spread. You understand? Because the gospel of everything that's been created is still here, still right with us. We one with it. So watch how you spread in your gospel. You got me? Okay. Hopefully you do. Hopefully you do. So, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now, if we spread that out, we'll see that it says, in darkness was upon. Okay? You got to spread these out to in-depth specifics. Okay? Specific. Was upon. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. You understand? Like bam, bam, bam. These are specifics. These are how you are to put out your long prayers, okay? Your long prayers, not your, I guess I'm going to say it like this. I don't know how I said it in the beginning, but you don't want long, as in these prayers that are long stretched out in prayer. But it is going to get a little lengthy, should I say. It's going to get a little lengthy. It's going to be long, of course, because when you go into Psalms, you read Psalms, some are long, some are short. But it's going to always be specifics. And again, I said that in the beginning, how God is wanting the specific long prayers, not the long prayers that just saying words in a long, drawn out story. No, he wants you to write this like you're writing a letter. So he wants you to interpret this thing. Interpretation, no stories. Interpret. So the opposite of stories is interpretation. All right. And that's what God's children are going to be doing, interpreting. That's why you got to watch out the gospel that you walk in it, because you are interpreting a thing. All right. From the way you walk, the way you talk, and what comes in and out of you. You are interpreting a thing. And you're going to see all this when you go into the dream world. How you going to interpret the thing from when you woke to when you go to sleep. And when you wake back up and try to ignore that dream. And how people have done things along the way as well, in which they are, their light come beaming on you. You will see that. It is a scanning in which is going to take place, regardless of the matter. That scanning is still going to take place because the beginning is still being created. All right. There is a form without, meaning before us. There's a form and void there. Okay. So those form and voids are going to create, you're going to scan. That scanning machine that you got is going to be there. And that's why these people are in your dream. Because that form and void is still being made. It's still there. No matter how demonic that person is, that form and void is still there. That law is still in effect. So that's why that person is still going to be there in your dream. You're not going to know it's them because it's going to come. Because that form and void is that person is going to be housed with that specific demon. And believe me, even though that demon come as one, it has other demons with it. Okay. So that form and void that you see, which is that flesh, which is that shadow in which it speaks about in the Bible, that's a shadow. And that shadow, when you see a person, you see their shadow behind them, right? Well, guess what? That shadow is going to be what's the form and void without. It's going to be in your dream. You're going to see that person, but you're not going to see that person sometimes. Sometimes you're going to see that person's demons because of form and void. That's without. And your scanning system is also a part of the without the earth without. It's going to pick up on it. All that stuff is going to be with you on the inside. You're going to be dreaming about it. This is how God is also going to be interpreting things that he's going to have for some of you once you get into knowing that this is a system. This is a doctrine in which we uphold to. And once you go back to the beginning of it and you know and you okay with everything being done, guess what? That's why God's going to use you. God can begin to use you and have you to spread the gospel in the right way. In usage of the beginnings to the end portions. You're going to know how to do those things. Do you get what I'm saying, class? You're going to be able to utilize those things from the beginning portion and the end portion, meaning all of the stuff that he created that you were one with, you're going to be able to utilize that stuff and give it to the ending portion, which is when the people came and all that stuff they did. You're going to be able to grab those houses that wasn't supposed to be coming out there into the atmosphere. You're going to be grabbing them houses and you're going to put houses, which is why I say you're going to put houses on all those witches. That's why I said that. Because you're going to begin to put houses on all witches. The wicked witch of the east, the wicked witch of the north, the south, and the west. If you remember the Oz, it was only 2 witches that were still there. And I think it was the south and the east. They still was wicked. I don't care how good that witch was. That's the length of wickedness, how wickedness can get. Wickedness can get lengthy. But again, if you take your prayers and you specify, like in a letter is specific, right? When you write a letter, this is specific words from the boss. But when you tell a story, this is just stuff that's coming off the top of your dome, right? That's what they call it in where I was raised. From the top of your dome. That's what you are speaking of. From the mind. You will have that coming onto your book. When you telling the story, you just get stuff all off the mind and you just get it on, put it in a book. That's a story. We ain't writing stories in this new stuff, which is also the beginning stuff. We ain't getting off into it and telling no story. We are writing a letter. This coming from the boss man. The boss man. And we got to tell what the boss man said. If he said something, we got to tell it. Meaning interpret it. Our day-to-day, our walk, is an interpretation of our life. Do you hear me, class? Our day-to-day is an interpretation. Our walk is an interpretation of our life. That's our day-to-day life we live in. That's the interpretation. So when you walk and you meet and you greet, that's why all those people come into your dream. That's interpretation. The whole day is an interpretation of your gospel and what you uphold to, right? Of your gospel and what you believe in your gospel. But sometimes some things is out of your control, which all things are out of your control. You don't have no control of anything that's down here in heaven. You don't have no control of that. Although many people try to take their lives to try to control things, or many people will try to do wicked things to try to control things. Or some people will try to yell, scream, holler. This go from kids all the way up to try to control things. Remembering your past to try to control things. To knowing your future to try to control things. And these things that are trying to control become in your doctrine. They come within the doctrine. They become doctrine that you uphold to. Because things do stick within. That's a house you're in. So all that clutter and all that stuff, it builds up. So do know, interpretation is what we do now. All right? And at some point, your interpretation has to change. So if I take that, and before I get to telling you what I'm going to tell you, if I put that from the bottom and it says, of the deep, it will begin to tell you about of the deep, okay? And then go from that, the face was upon, right? Was upon. And that darkness too. So if you interpret that as specific in this letter that I've said to you, meaning you're going to utilize that for prayer, and this is going to help you how to organize your prayer points, okay? How you write this like that, prayer points, meaning key points, power points, all right? That's why I say prayer points. This will begin, boom, boom, boom. All of those things will begin to be how you build your prayer. And then you'll be like, boom, 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 boom. Okay? So from the bottom to the top, what do you think that means? And of the deep, the face was upon, and also the dark. What do you think that means? Because that's what we are about to go off into. And the darkness was upon the face of the deep. We're about to go off into that portion of it. What do you think that means? Interpret it. If you walk in the interpretation, you won't have struggles with interpreting, because you will make the gospel your whole being. Interpret it. Interpret it, class. Walk in the interpretation, and you won't have to get the interpretation because it's already gotten. You got what I'm saying? I'm not playing on words, but I'm just telling you. Period. So, and darkness was upon the face of the earth. Now, as I get off into that, these are some words that I got to say about that. And that is the darkness. Okay, let's start with the darkness. The darkness, as I give this to you in portion, so you can kind of get a little bit of what I'm trying to get off into. Okay, so the darkness, all right, it's not only talking about in the dark. Okay, the darkness ain't only talking about in the dark. All right, like when it get dark outside. No, it's deeper than that. Okay, the darkness is to do with the shadow in which I was telling you about, and how the form and void is going to take place, right? That's this. The form and void was without. So now we're getting off into the darkness of that form and void. So we're going on to 1-2 in the portion of, and the darkness was upon the face of the deep. So the darkness of that without, that's telling you what we dealing with. Okay, it's beginning to tell you what we dealing with this form and void that was without us. All right, we getting off into the darkness of that form and void that was without us, all around about us, and also this flesh, which is not our real self. We are spirit. But it gets off into this. They unite. We got into this. This was already with the earth, right? But we brought the heaven, because we are spirit, into this earthly body that was already here before. All right? But God placed it in the womb of the woman to make it be right. To make it just be right. Okay? So darkness is on. So it's mainly just getting off into telling you that the darkness that without, that form and void that was without, pure darkness, pure and utter darkness. That form and void, which is what I tell you what void was, the law. Void is the law. So the law in which God was speaking about is this form and void. This form and void is what? Darkness. And where is it located? Without. Before. Meaning from this flesh all out there into the atmosphere. Do you understand? That darkness was here. You can't try to take the darkness away in the way you're doing it. No, you can't do that. That's why God created you in the spirit. That's why he did the heaven and earth, meaning he created you in the spirit to come here to this earthly stuff. But he didn't create you to do the earthly stuff. He created you to do the spiritual stuff. That's why he created you to do the spiritual stuff and not the earthly stuff. because he knew already what this stuff was. And here it is, he telling us what the stuff was. And here it is, you reading it as though the stuff ain't. You passing it up, you avoiding it, only to find out what it actually means later. And that's why he said, read it again, because he always going to be upgrading the word too. So just because I'm saying this portion, he can give me something else, and then we read this Genesis again differently to you and bring out the interpretation of what that means. However God give you the interpretation, you're going to walk and talk interpreting. Okay? So the darkness is of this form and void, where? Without. With I said was without, right? That form and void was without. So now the darkness is a portion of that form and void. Right? That's called darkness. That form, listen, take your notes. That form and void is without us, meaning this flesh all out to the atmosphere of this earth. All right? That's why we are also called the heavenly. Okay? Because it's heaven here. Heaven is here. It's here. Heaven is here already. And yet we looking at the end and forget heaven is already here. Class. When God sent us down, heaven had begun. But you got into this here. What is this again? Darkness, form and void on the without. Remember that. Take your notes. What's this here and all out there? What's this? Darkness, form and void on the without. Meaning in front of us. We got into the skin. This is something that God will rip off these clothes. He will rip it off and make you brand new. This is like snake skin here, ripped off. We ain't talking, but see this, even though this is snake skin, God does utilize the snake within as well to move the snake without. So you'll be so powerful in prayer once you read this Bible and you get into your steps in Christ Jesus, in this doctrine of Christ. Once you get into these steps of Jesus, which is the doctrine of Christ, you will begin to be so powerful in prayer that you wouldn't even believe that you were praying now. You know, you won't believe you praying now. What? I can't believe I said that. But you gonna say it. So darkness is the place, the thing that take place on the outside of the form and void. Okay, of the form and void. And I know it's crazy, but it sounds crazy and you can't get it, but you'll get it over time. And what I'm saying to you, it'll come to you. So this form and void is not only on the earth, but it's also with us, because we are not this flesh. It's us inside this flesh. So this flesh is also that thing that is earthly. Okay? That's darkness too. So that's why flesh is the darkness as well. it participates in the darkness as well. It does what darkness do as well. So let's get off it. Okay, so in darkness, and then I'm gonna go right on into this other portion, which is the face, right? The face is also meaning the face is the meaning the outer surface of ourselves, our flesh, and out on the earth. We are a part of this consumption, the consumption of this, right? We are a part of the consumption of this right now, the heaven and earth consumption. We are a part of that consumption. We are a part of all of this. This is us now. And we got to do it with Christ. And it gets off into some stuff as we read on how we are to do this system, because don't forget, God did write some stuff down in the beginning and how we're supposed to play this out before people came on the face of the earth and started playing it out the way they played it out. Yeah, he did do some stuff beforehand. So we'll get off into all the stuff and what this means to you. All right. And don't forget to go to God in prayer and see what he says. Okay. See what he says. But the face, always know that the face, I'm finna get off into that, but let me get into of the deep part. The deep, the definition of that deep, meaning this is like that deep. The deep is that dark hole of that form and void, okay? Which is void is law, right? The dark hole of that form and void. That's the deep. This is, so it's letting you know the definition of this form and void. The form and void is the dark, that darkness, that dark place. And that dark place ain't just anywhere without. It's us, the flesh too. The flesh and out there as well. It's with us, and also we are all united. We are here together. We are united here today. Okay, we are united here today. Even before you got married, you was married. Do you understand? That's why it says that in the Bible that you was already married before you got married. And I remember a dream I had where I told this lady to stay wedded. Stay wedded. Because you was already married. You was already wedded before you got wedded in the physical. Do you understand? Stay wedded. Stay wedded meaning stay in the gospel. Stay where you supposed to be with God. Stay there. Stay wedded. Stay married. Don't allow this flesh and what you've been through to take you out of being wedded. Stay wedded. Stay married. Not to the person, but to God. Stay wedded. Stay wedded. And then when I kept saying it, she eventually went to the guy, and then I went in front of her and I said it again. Stay wedded. And when she went and she went and said some stuff to the guy, she went through the little hurdle she went through, and then she finally got what I said and what I meant by stay wedded. So there was a beginning before there was us, with the ending. There was. So you gotta get a little deep. People say it don't get deep. It gets deep. Look at it. Look at what it's saying. Of the deep. So when a person talk about some, it don't get deep. Hey, what does Genesis chapter 1, verse 2 talk about? Of the deep. It gets deep. So what you talking about? It gets deep. What are they saying? Maybe they ain't seeing Genesis. They too worried about something else. Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. They too worried about those things when those things was the end. And they not worried about the beginning. Class, they not worried about the beginning. So when they say it don't get deep, you say, oh yeah, it do get deep. It gets deep. It gets deep. Of the deep type of thing, okay? So yeah. So what I will say to you is that deep is part of, if I interpret that, the deep is part of the darkness. I'll take the beginning portion of that Genesis verse 1 and 2, and I'll put the of the deep from the bottom all the way to the top. It's a part of the darkness. You will know that the deep is part of the darkness, okay? And the darkness, and let's go from the top to the bottom. The darkness is part of the deep. And also, you need to also know that even though the darkness is of the deep and the deep is of the darkness, the deep has darkness with it. Well, you also need to know that the face was upon it. Now we're getting into some stuff. The face was upon it. That's telling you that the system is starting to awaken you up to letting you know that the face is there. It's just like when you read your stories and all those different things, and in the stories it starts off with the plot, the theme, and so on and so forth. Well, guess what? It's the same thing. Same thing. It's letting you know the plot right here. It's telling you that the face is still going to be in that deep darkness. The face was upon it. That means the face, that's why the Lord say, don't be afraid of their faces, meaning their faces, because the face is upon them. The face is upon them. It's been planted here. Beginning, in the beginning, there took place a formation. There took place a beginning. There took place this doctrine in which we uphold to now. Stuff took place other than us blaming each other. Stuff took place. And the face was upon it as it took place. It's telling you that now we putting the faith into it. The faith is now being put into play of all this darkness and all this deep things, which is to do with darkness and deep stuff, that void, forming void on the without. The faith still there. The Godhead, the faith still there. The doctrine of Christ, that faith is still there. No matter how you try to make it seem like God can't see you, the faith is still upon you. You know how that girl said that if I can quote it correctly, quote me on this. But it says that how she said to the man, she said, something is upon you, something, fill me in with, because I'm sleepy and I'm thinking, not thinking, but I'm totally sleepy. But she was saying to the guy that what's the name is upon you, what's the name is upon you. But what also is upon us is the face, that God hid. And if we really want to get into it a little more, the Godhead includes the Spirit, right? The Spirit, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and the Father. And them being one. So we got God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's the complete Godhead right there. So remember that phase. That's one. Through Jesus Christ. That head, that face is still going to be there in the midst of the deep of all that darkness, that form and void. You're still going to see that. That's why when you have these dreams, again, when you have these dreams, that scanner is still going to take place, because the form and void had been completed. The form and void has been completed. So therefore, you're going to spot out the depths of that form and void. And that's going to be that face that's going to take and scan out what's before you. It's going to be looking at the things that's before you automatically. That face, the face. Because what I tell you about, if the is in front of something, if the word the is in front of something, that means we're getting off into a system. And what a system is? A belief system. A belief. And the belief is what? The doctrine in which you are faced with. You are up against. That it will come. Okay? So the face will begin rotating its formation, its doctrine in which it's supposed to be doing. And the doctrine, that word doctrine, get over it. It can mean good or evil. In this case, this is good. This is the good. But it could be bad. It could be rough and tough and terrible for you. Or it can go in the righteous direction for you. Okay? So don't forget that face gonna take place. It's gonna always be there. No matter if you try to bam, pow, get rid of it, that face still gonna always be there, no matter what. All right. So as I wrote, the darkness and the face in the deep, even though the deep and the darkness is there, it's that face still gonna be upon all of the people. It's gonna be spotting out everything you do. And that scanner, you're gonna need to scan, because it's gonna scan anyway. It's gonna scan anyway. So when you go to sleep, that face that's gonna be there, it's still gonna scan those people. And when you go to sleep, you're going to see them people in your dream. So those who are avoiding dreams, them dreams still going to be there. The judgment of that face is still going to scan what's before you. No matter if there's a good person or an evil person, that face is going to look out. What's this? As you approach anybody or even yourself, that face going to still be in that flesh, all out in that atmosphere. Even when you meet up with your neighbors, that face still going to be scanning. That's your scanning. That face, that's your scanner. And that's why some people can interpret very well, because they used to using their face. Their face. In the name of Jesus, their face. So darkness, as you may or may not know, light shines in the darkness, okay? That face. And of course, that darkness will not comprehend it at all. It will not comprehend it at all. So all those things that's going on in the flesh, if you in the flesh and you operating in the flesh, believe me, you will not be able to interpret correctly. You will not be able to interpret your dreams correctly. So the way you walk that gospel in which you gospeling in, you won't be able to spread it correctly. So darkness will continue to take place. And in this place, which is flesh, on out to this earth, and even out to the heaven. Because all was made and created by God. Out on the without of us, okay, that darkness and that deep. And light will continue to take place no matter how much darkness continue to try and rule over the light. This goes off into that. No matter how much darkness try and rule over the light, that face will still be there to look, to scan out the deep of this darkness. Okay? So the light will shine. And when it shines, darkness out on flesh, which is the law, which is the form and void, it will not see it coming. This face of this darkness, it won't see, the darkness cannot see this face coming, because it's in darkness. It's in the depths of that. That's the deep. When you in the deep, in the darkness, the deep flesh on out, you will not see this face scanning out all different things. But if you are in the spirit and you separate yourself, just like oil and water, if you begin to separate yourself, which we're going to go into that too, in another part of this, how it starts taking place. It begins taking place, telling you what's going out on here. What's going on? You're going to know what's going on. So darkness can't see this coming. This face, darkness not going to see that, but you will see it. If you're in the spirit, you will see this. And he will make it known. And if you are one with the face, you will see yourself looking in with your face, with one with that face, looking in. And in that face will show you what's really going on around you. And not you being in the space of that fleshly stuff. All right. So where was I? The law without, meaning out on the outside, is but a shadow. And this shadow is without light. This light that shines from the doctrine of Christ, darkness cannot contain it. So darkness don't got that light. Darkness is the voided portion of the deep in the form in which is created, and that face has fulfilled it. God has fulfilled all that which he has made. And that's why you can see things that you see, because that face, that is God. So it will only be able to bow down, this flesh, darkness, the deep. It will only be able to bow down before God. So God is showing you how the system is run. You understand? God is showing you how the system is ran by him and the people who will be in the system already, made before you. But way before you got here, because this will not move. Only thing will take place is other people will come and move those people out the way. And then more people will come and move those people out the way until he finds that 100 more, and 144,000 more people that remain. You understand? So he will move certain systems to the side so that you can move forward within the doctrine of Christ, because you can. You can move forward, children of God. You can. Because you have on you also the heaven stuff, that heaven stuff. And you can make demons flee because of that heaven stuff. Do you understand me? So this portion in which is the darkness was upon the face of the deep is to let you know that darkness, that deep, it don't define us. It don't define you, children of God. That face promotes help. Okay? That face promotes help. And it's there with you. So why are you afraid of men in their faces when you got the face protecting you and shielding you at all times? And I do mean shielding you, and with angels, and with the sword. What you afraid of their faces for? When the face that is with Jesus, and if you uphold to the doctrine of Christ, that face is also with you. And at the end, it won't take it to get to the end where you die off and then you see that face that was always there all the whole time, scanning out your whole life. You won't have to go to the death part of it to receive that face. You'll already be with that face, one with that face, which is that light that shines upon the face of the deep and that darkness. You'll be one with it, and you won't be in that portion that when you see the dreams where you see yourself, you won't see yourself because you won't be in the sin anymore. You'll be part of the doctrine of Christ. Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, which adds up to Jesus Christ, the doctrine of Christ, that house. You understand? And not in your ancestral house, roaming around somewhere else. All right. So, class, that's that one, okay? That is that today. Hopefully you got something out of what I said. Again, take this to the Lord in prayer. Stay blessed. This is about creation of heaven and earth. This is something deep. It gets deep. So that's why a lot of things got to take place. Like you got to die to self. You know, you're going to have to do that several times. You're going to have to do dying to self several times. That's why. So that you won't be in the story, but you'll be with the letter, in which our boss man is God giving it to us. And we spreading that beginnings of everything that God created in a righteous manner. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. So let me get you all up off of here. Stay blessed. Hopefully you got what I'm saying. And stay tuned for more. Bye for now. Salute to you, soldiers. Salute to you, soldiers. Let me pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For you are the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Also, if you want to invite Jesus Christ into your heart, I've been saying this a certain way, but I'm going to say this a new form of way, which is Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the light. Okay. So I'm going to say it, not say it as a 3, but I'm going to say it as a 1. Okay. As we are getting off into Bible study, and I'm learning what you learning. Okay. I'm learning what you learning. So now let's go, because it's real. It's real about this Christ. So, Jesus, forgive me of my sins. Come into my heart and save me, and make me your child. I believe you are the Son of God, who died on the cross for my sins and rose on the 3rd day. Thank you, Jesus, for saving me. All right? Thank you, Jesus, for saving me. Welcome Jesus into your heart as I speak. In Jesus' name, amen. Again, salute to you, soldiers. Salute to you, soldiers. Bye for now.